Miriam mumbled. I don't trust that word. I was tempted to say, well, she didn't trust you, but don't. Instead I asked, so what's the story? You finally gonna audition? I think so, Miriam says, poking the stick into second and then third, which causes the Volkswagen to whine. What did that guy, Rocky, the manager, say? I asked. Not that I really want to know. I really wanted to say something about Trish, share some emotion about our absent friend. But there's at least a dozen lights between here and Maudie's, and if I talk, I won't be bothered by Miriam's rectitude, and won't keep glancing down at my watch, which tells me it's 1:45, almost too late for more rock and roll. I told him I'd been playing Simmons, that the band could use some new blood. I mean some loosening up. Do my eyes deceive, or is Miriam blushing? Usually she's so confident, alarming at times. Here's one example. Right before Trish went away, Miriam had us just about convinced that the songs we'd written on our free afternoons together were our ticket to the big time. Trish wasn't a musician, and I was just messing around in my ovation, but one night when the three of us were crazed, Trish and I played Miriam our compositions. To our surprise, she was ecstatic. Loved them. Loved Chuck E. Cheese, my send-off to a boy who dumped me. Sweet revenge to hear her praise. Loved Left Alone When I'm With You, the first song I wrote to the Chuck E. Cheese character when we were still going out. She just about swooned over He's in Love with His Old Girlfriend, Trish's ballad about a guy whose other dependency revolved around drugs. We should start a band, Miriam raved as Trish carefully replaced my guitar in its case. An all-girl band, then we could get somewhere. Trish was mildly tickled, but I was sarcastic. I didn't need Miriam's diamond needle ambition aimed at me. No, I'm serious, you guys. These are better than the Go-Go's or the Bangles. We should be rehearsing. Trish's departure to New York squelched that idea. Then I got busy with my fanzine. That was the last night the three of us had shared that wasn't in some bar, and here it was, fall creeping to winter. Stealing a glance at Miriam's stoic profile in the car, I couldn't help thinking that she might be right somehow. Big old crowd of the headliners, right? Miriam asked, wincing as her brakes squealed at the next intersection. Uh-huh. You know where Monty's is, right? Just turn at these lights. I was joking. Hadn't we been 100 times? Then again, Miriam's sense of humor can disappear for weeks. I remember, she bristled. The chaser lights around the sign for Maudie's tap room are burnt out irregularly, so the white bulbs make a dizzy skip around the familiar welcome. We lock up the bug, and I hold the club door open. Miriam quietly stands at the cash register. The bouncer doesn't have my name on his crumpled guest list, but lets us in anyway. Because of the hour, I tease Miriam, not because he knows me. Inside, Maudie's is the same as ever. Wiry skinheads hunch over the video games by the blacked-out windows. On the walls, in-store promo posters for records by bands come and gone hang at mad angles, corners mutilated from replaced pushpins. Cigarette smoke hangs in a gauze around the stray houselights. In the back, a couple of pickled trout are on stage. The guitarist and bass player are twiddling the knobs on their amps and ignoring the groupie rats. Some of them are familiar, though I can never remember their names. Why bother? They might as well be the same girl in the same sleeveless black shift. They rest bony white arms over each other's shoulders and lean provocatively against the stage. I head straight for the bar, where a life-size cutout of Deborah Harry in her Wild Thing phase is stuffed in the far corner. I nod to Deb and gesture to the bartender. The drinks at Maudie's come in shatterproof plastic cups, so he doesn't have much to do in his free time and quickly fills the order. I ask for a soda water for Miriam, and the same for me, with a big dollop of scotch. Miriam angles through the dwindling crowd, drunk by now, to check out the drum kit. I pocket the change and join her. I can't believe these guys have the #1 spot in WROC, she comments, taking the soda water as if she's doing me a favor. Usually that's okay. I'm used to her never saying thank you. But it's late. We've just wasted 2 hours at Antonio, so her rudeness awakens my natural combativeness, refreshed now by the whiskey. Why? I demand. Grenades for Granada is a great single. Timely, too. Yeah, but #1? I think that's #1 local, Mirror. I am condescending. You know how that works. She shakes her head. I smile into my drink and expound. See, everybody calls up the station on Saturday morning and requests it like mad. The geeks doing phone duty ask where you're calling from, and if the band is smart and have told their smart friends, everybody will remember to give a different town so it doesn't look fixed, which it is. Okay, Miriam says, but Touchstone is #3. I can't buy that. These guys, here she shakes her head at the stage, are so, I don't know, crude. Miriam spits out the last word and then looks at me accusingly as if she'd swallowed a fly and put in her drink. Crude, I say. Crude? They're rough, amateurs. They're working on their sound, you know? They're not there yet. Suddenly, I pray the band will get it together and start playing. I always feel ridiculous defending my noise bands to Miriam. She doesn't like the one, though obliging my musical tastes is her responsibility in this unwritten contract. We'll see, Miriam says, maddeningly. We'll just see. I sympathize with Trish. Miriam's inscrutability makes me want to punch her out. What's your idea of a great band? Shining Knights? Now I'm angry. Of course the Birdman didn't go to Antonio's. Syndromes aren't his scene. A swift glance around the tap room assures me that he's probably taking the night off. A great band, Miriam muses. She stirs her drink with a pointed index finger so her soda water bubbles. My frustration at the Birdman's non-appearance is mounting. I swear the ice cubes rattling in her plastic cup are inside my head. I don't know what a great band is, Phoebe, Miriam says. I just go out to see these groups and think they'd be great if I was in them. I mean, I could make them great. Miriam catches my eye. I was mid-swig on the scotch, so I try to outvague her, but my heart's not in it. You probably would, Miriam, I compliment her. Now I can be humble. All four pickled trout have ambled into the spotlight. No problem, I say, backing out of the conversation. The band swings into beer, not fear, their alcoholic anti-war rant, which I've heard before. Miriam skulks back to the bar and I follow her. We lean against it when a skinny punk slides off his stool to grab adjoining seats. I light a cigarette and then Miriam says, "Isn't that Chester?" She nods towards a tall figure standing at the right of the stage. Chester still makes me gasp. He's Chuck E. Cheese, the most unsuccessful boyfriend I ever had because I still have a crush on him. He shows up at the worst times. Yeah, I think so, I say as carelessly as possible. Miriam's interested. It is Chester, she declares. Aren't you going to say hello? I shake my head and drop my half-smoked butt on the floor. Chester hated my smoking, and midway through our 4-month rendezvous, I'd pretended to quit so he'd like me better. I hate to admit this, but part of my addiction to late-night rambles is my hope of running into him. We'd broken up before I'd gotten to know Miriam, so she didn't know how I'd suffered. That stagey agony was something I confided to Trish alone, and after Trish left, I wasn't comfortable reiterating the trials of the Chester thing with someone who hadn't been there. Sort of the way people who fall for stuff like Est can only relate to the other suckers who shelled out the bucks for the seminar. But there was Chester, and since we'd broken up in January, the number of times he'd called me I could count on one thumb of one hand. Oh, there had been a night, late in summer, when he followed me home from Maudie's. Miriam didn't see. She'd vanished with a pimply drummer. Would Chester be sitting on my doorstep tonight, waiting to be let in like a Greenpeace zealot who still has my name on his clipboard? If Miriam is aware of any of these infatuations, she doesn't let on. For all I know, she's convinced I'm having something with the Birdman. He's not a musician and doesn't work in a club, so his nebulous in our shared nighttime world probably strikes her as sinister. She never alludes to love anyways. Miriam is not like Trish, who could perk up the dreariest night out by unexpectedly confiding a crush on a DJ or lead singer. From my frequent but limited exposure, like those cracks about anonymous drifters at Antonio's, I'd say that Miriam has never fallen in love. Her reactions to each one-shot deal are identical, thinly veiled vexation doused with perplexity, though to her credit these outbursts are rare. Not once had there been the opportunity for me to expound the philosophy Trish and I had honed, but failed to remember in a clinch. Rock and roll and romance? Never mix. I squint into the glassy club lights. She's right, there's Chester, but he's not alone. Maybe he was. Was he leaning towards someone, whispering some flip comment to some new girl? I could hear his poetic patrician speech patterns. He's such a bad bass player, a pity he writes the material, but his pick noise makes all their songs sound like soundpaper. You see the Birdman anywhere? I mutter to Miriam. She denies, and then with surprising force. What is it with that guy? Do you have something going with him? I almost guffaw at that. I really want to laugh. Trust Miriam to mistake drug lust with the other kind, the other kinds. If Chester's got some new thing going, I want the Birdman around for safe company. Where was he anyways? Didn't he still live with the Trout guitarist?